in there, you had made mention of something, and it just kind of sparked something for me, where I always hear this quote where you can't be faith filled and then have fear at the same time.
Ooh.
How do you
Yes,
feel about that?
I like that. I like that a lot.
You know,
We see that in David.
Yeah.
Back to David. We said he was full of faith in front of Goliath. He was full of faith whenever he stood up against the bear and the cat. The mountain lion.
yeah,
He was full of faith whenever he would pray to God to work through him to lead the people. You know, he actually had faith in God whenever he not fell out of favor, because he never fell out of favor, but whenever he committed sin against God, he still had faith in God. And he was like, let me give myself up to you. Because yes, you're a living God, and it's a terrible thing to fall in hands of a living God. And that doesn't mean that God won't have mercy. That means that God is a real person, if you want to put it that way. If you're, worshiping Buddha, no offense, but you're talking to a stone, a piece of marble, a piece of jade, a wooden carving. It's a creation that's made by another creation of God. But if you fall, and if let's say that you smack Buddha on the head, it falls on the ground, it breaks. If it's an inanimate object, it's not alive. God is alive, so He has the power to do whatever He wants. And if you're on the bad side of God, there's plenty of examples of what happens in the Bible. But the point is that, like you said, you can't be fearful and full of faith. It doesn't exist,
yeah. Man, I guess that I only bring that up, man, because later on, I forget which book it was in, but a man's son or daughter had died, and Jesus was walking amongst the town people, and I don't know if he was carrying the body or if the body was still laid up in the house, but he came to Jesus and said, can you heal my child? My child has passed. Would you be willing to heal my child? And Jesus said, well, do you believe that I can do it? And the guy says, I believe, but heal my unbelief. So, he wanted to truly believe 100% that God would come through to be able to, resurrect this child. But there was those aspects of him, personally that, some of those stories that I've heard, they don't always make sense. How is it that you were able to split this one loaf of bread and feed 10,000 people? That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So in the logical mind, it's like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I think that's where we end up, being stuck as, just human beings. You try
That's
to go
probably where
about
fear sets
rationalizing
in.
something. Yeah, exactly.
Because it makes sense, yeah.
Exactly. So as opposed to being able to, tangibly, if I'm holding a pen and then I split this thing, it's like, is it going to work? Like, yeah, for a little bit, sure, whatever. But after that ink runs out, it's unlogical or, unfathomable for you to go about being able to continue writing with this pen even though it doesn't have ink in it. But if God is saying, it's possible, yeah, go ahead and write with that pen that doesn't have ink. It's like, what? Okay, I'll give it a shot. Yeah, now you're full of faith type deal. But I think in those instances, it really just reflects what the interaction between like a regular person is, as opposed to that person that is filled with that spirit of David, that is after God's own heart. So you compare the two, and where David can say, I stand against you, backed by my God. Everybody else is on this other end where it's like, I believe, but heal my unbelief. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're actually going about pursuing, a relationship with God. And I don't think that you can condemn either or.
Yeah.
I think that's remarkable. I think that is a beautiful place to be. If that's your prayer to God, it's just like,
Heal my unbelief.
Heal my unbelief. I believe in you. But the rest of this stuff, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like that goes against physics, that goes against climate change, that goes against all this
Right.
other nonsense.
Exactly.
So heal my unbelief. And if you're there, I think that's a beautiful place to be. Because like that means, to me, in my understanding, right, like you're a baby in the gospel. You finally you finally accepted Jesus as your savior, right? So you're new, you're fresh, right? And you're in this beautiful, humble place for you to recognize, internalize, and say, I believe in you, but I don't believe everything yet. I want to. Show me your glory.
Absolutely.
Show me the
Yes.
miracles.
Yes.
You know, show
Absolutely.
me your hand. Show me your power. Show me your majesty. You know.
That's a dangerous prayer. Because
is.
when God does it and he shows you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you better be ready.
Exactly.
Because there's things that you're going to see and experience and feel that, like, you know, you're going to be like, there's no such thing as a coincidence anymore.
Yeah.
You know, because after
Yes.
so many quote unquote coincidences, at one point you're going to be like, there's got to be someone, something greater at hand, because
Absolutely.
this does not make sense.
Absolutely.
Dude, I'm telling you.
When it comes to the miracles in the Bible, that's like my biggest argument against people that say, well, you know, let's say the Red Sea, right? It parted. Oh, well, you know, where they crossed, it's supposed to be skinnier. And
Yeah.
at the certain part of
Yeah,
the
there's
year,
that.
it like
Wow.
runs dry or
Yeah.
runs like less so you can walk through it or something like that.
Exactly.
And I'm like, okay, right? So you're telling me that this man with this imaginary God that doesn't exist, right? They're communicating or talking to each other, which doesn't happen, right? This guy's just crazy. He just happens to be at the right place at the right time, at the time where these people really need to get past this sea,
And it all just aligned.
and it all just happened
Yeah.
at the perfect time.
Yeah.
Nah,
water
that's
just
show me
somehow was
the
shallow.
statistics, my man. Show me the statistics. Another one is the prophet when he's in a rivalry against the other false prophets of Baal.
Oh, yeah.
And then he says, all right, we're going to make an altar here. And then whoever's God is real will rain fire down from heaven and ignite this altar.
Yeah.
Right. And so you have the false prophets, right? The witches, the warlocks, the wizards, whatever. And they're over here lacerating themselves and chanting and doing weird dances and being naked and whatever. And over here you have the prophet. Was that Samuel? No. Isaiah? I can't remember. Anyways,
Yeah.
you have the prophet, and then he's over here laughing and just like, oh, you know, scream louder so your God can hear you, you know? So long
Cut
story.
just a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
Try your throat. That one's a great spot.
Yeah.
telling you.
And so long story short, he gets up on the altar and he makes the pot even yummier, you know, because he takes water on this wooden altar and just dumps water until it's drenched, right? And then he prays to God, you know, God of Abraham, Isaac, and, you know, and, you know, light this fire, rain fire from heaven so that these people can see that you are the one and only true God. And boom, fire from heaven comes, consumes everything, even the water. It was dry,
Man.
you know? And so part
Nasty.
of the wager was that if he won, the wizards all die. They all get decapitated, right? But anyways, you're going to tell me that's a coincidence? You know what I mean? Like, you're going to tell me that was just the guy was at the right time, said the right words, and he didn't know if it was going to happen. It just, I got lucky. You know, like, nah, get out of here.
Absolutely.
Stop it.
Let's see. And I guess it's unfathomable up until it happens in your life, right? The things that you counted. It might not be one of those, you know, moments that they were seeing in the past where, you know, this altar is lit on fire or otherwise, but it's something that, you know, a doctor tells you, it's like, hey, that can't happen for you. And then it happens for you.
There you go.
You know what I mean? So the things that, you know, are not tangible to us just because we can't see them.
Yeah.
I think that those are the truest expressions of faith now,
Yes.
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Just like I said earlier, you really see God's will in hindsight, you know, when you look back. And it's all in the timing. God is a master architect. You know, his ability to design everything to the millisecond is just, you can't fathom it, right? Like, our little human brains can't understand that. When he created everything, right? Let's just say, you know, he did it in the manner of a Big Bang, right? Let's just say he did it in the manner of a Big Bang. In that moment, he already set some weird little comet to go around the universe, and at something BC,
Yep.
it would come and rain down and hit the thing, right?
Exactly.
Or you are, you just lost your job and you can't pay bills, and what are you gonna do? And then someone calls you, hey, you do this and that, right? Yeah. Oh, come on, help
Yeah.
me out.
Yeah.
I got some money for you.
Exactly.
It's like,
And then it's the exact amount that you
yeah,
need.
and it's the exact amount that you need. And I'm just like,
Exactly.
that's a miracle. That's a modern day miracle.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Or,
Yeah, sure.
you're just, there's so much in the small details of life that we don't realize that God set in motion since the day of creation. So,
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Let's see.
And when it all aligns and finally works out and you see that miracle, you experience that, if you're a believer, it should strengthen your faith.
absolutely. Yeah.
But if you're not, you're like, oh, I got lucky.
Yeah.
And that's like, oh, you missed the point, man.
Yeah,
you missed the point. You missed the
Absolutely.
mark.
Yeah.
You didn't get lucky. There is no luck.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There is no luck.
Yeah, man.
There is no coincidence.
No, not at all.
You're just
Man.
at that point. You're just choosing not to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's awe-striking, right? Where we are essentially utilized to go about, furthering just the word of God. So where I might be struggling with money, right? And then you guys come into my life, and it's just like, you said, Alfredo, oh, I got this, job that you might be able to do. I could pay you, whatever it is that you need. And that kind of stuff happens. But that kind of stuff was happening in the biblical days as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Where the individual that was not supposed to be healed, sitting by a fountain for 30 plus years, legs mangled and all this other craziness. And Jesus comes by and says, hey, take up your mat and walk.
Mm-hmm.
And, you don't really think about everything that goes behind that. And I'm only getting this story from a pastor that I watch, throughout the week. And it's like, the first time that this person was ever using their legs. It doesn't really say whether or not the person was crippled like after a time or what, but after, 32 years, this person is having to stand up. The bones are setting back into place and all this stuff. So I could imagine it was painful, and then you go to stand up, having to use muscles and such that you have never used before,
Right.
and then after that, you have to bend back down and pick up the mat that you've been laying on for years and then start walking, amongst people that had seen you,
That's a heavy task.
Exactly. And I think that is just, amazing because you really think about how that ends up interacting with the modern day person, right? There's so many things that we don't know are possible. And I think that God ends up using people to go about furthering his agenda, right? Where the struggle for men and women with infertility, right? They have studies going on right now that it's like a skin scrape where they might be able to take like the skin cells and whatnot and develop those into formidable cells.
Wow.
Yeah. And they said, within like the next 5 to 10 years, those individuals will be able to have kids.
Wow.
So that's definitely something that individuals would have to look forward to. And then just all the other medical marvels that, are put in place where I don't like the idea of using like pig parts and all that stuff. If I have to get a pig part put into my body, please just let me die.
At least make it the bacon, okay? The yummy parts.
Yeah. Telling you. Yeah. But, they're going about using that kind of stuff on like the heart, for the valves and all that other craziness to where they actually continue functioning. And the person might be able to add on a couple years to life.
Yeah.
But all these things that without God, talking to someone and saying, hey, this is possible. We wouldn't even be able to interact with that kind of stuff now. You know what I mean?
That's so good because like, what if God's using you where you? I mean, not what if God's using you where you're at right now.
Exactly.
So a mentor taught me this, like, just serve where you're at.
Exactly.
Wherever you find yourself today, as you're listening, as you're watching, reading, whatever, serve where you're at right now. Serve where your 2 feet are at.
And
Man.
do it to the best of your ability.
Because that's all you got.
Exactly.
Do it to the best of your ability. Doesn't matter what it is. Like you said, like earlier we were joking about a janitor. But if you're a janitor, if you're a trashman, if you're whatever position you find that you think is unfitting or not luxurious, you know what I mean? Like, do it to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
be joyous to do it. Do it with a smile, you know.
And all those things add up to
Do
the
it for
greater
God's
sum.
glory.
Man.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It adds up because you don't know why you're there. You
Absolutely.
really don't know why you're there.
Absolutely.
You guys don't know why you guys know why we came here to record this show.
I thought I was supposed to be naked by now.
Well, that's the countdown's starting, bro. I was waiting.
That's at the after party. That's the exclusive.
Make sure you
The
subscribe if you want to see it.
Pay for that
Pay for-
content.
He's like, "Where's my OnlyFans account?"
It's called JFans.
No, man, but going back to that quote that I had pulled from the Bible earlier, where God says, "I know, I knew you before you were in your mother's womb."
Yes.
Essentially, that goes for even the person that might not even believe in God, right? So the things that they're doing, God had already wrote on their heart, put into their mind to be able to go about carrying out, to go about furthering His agenda. It's nobody else's agenda. Right, so you might not want to go to that person that they are openly an atheist and such, but if God gave them the mentality to go about being able to do these things, who knows? Maybe you were called to go into that office, and maybe something that you say might be able to turn them over to Christ.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So,
couple weeks ago, you mentioned George Foreman, right? You said he was a pastor,
oh yeah, man.
right? Like that was interesting.
Yeah.
And I mean, you think about it. If it was just some old other boxer, and then all of a sudden he came to Jesus,
Yeah.
and tries to bring other fighters,
Yeah.
like they'd be like, eh.
Yeah.
But that's George Foreman. Like he's got a grill.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? He's got a grill.
Yeah.
And so he's reached this level of influence and stature to the outside world, to the normal world, to everybody else. They know his name. He's famous. And now you've given him this platform, and now he's a leader for Christ. How much more impactful and useful is he? Because that's what am I being useful?
Yeah.
Like, God, am I being useful with the tools that as the tool that you've created me to be? Am I being useful with the talents and the gifts and the abilities that you've blessed me with?
Dude, so there's a book called Unfair Advantages, and it talks about and
Oh, I like it already.
exactly. So it really talks toward like the things that we see as a disadvantage, in the initial. So, growing up in the projects, not having food every day, not being able to afford to, get a ride to school, having to walk every single day. And then, the older that you get, the more you can end up doing behind all that stuff. So I was broke. And then, as a result, I knew that I wanted to go about going to college and, owning my own business. But had you not gone through all that stuff, maybe you wouldn't have those desires to go about doing all that. So the things that we might see as disadvantages end up becoming an unfair advantage. So being born in a foreign country and, having to struggle to be the person that you are today. There are people that want what it is that you have, but they're looking at what it is that you have as opposed to being able to take advantage of their own unfair advantage,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen that a lot, actually. A lot of the people that were the greatest salesmen or the best in, finances or stocks or things where needed roles that needed persuasion skills, they often came from low-income communities.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which I found fascinating. I was like, where are you from? Well, I'm from this part. What? What are you doing? Look at you now, man. Suit and tie and this and that, because they needed that development in their character to take them to fight, to have the tenacity, to have the confidence, to know that this guy ain't shit. I could take him.
Exactly.
I could take him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's just amazing to see that. You're absolutely right.
If you stop looking at life or the challenges as like a bad thing and rather look at it, reframe that in your mind as to this is character development.
Exactly. Yeah.
The best stories have the best character development.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
If this guy was just winning his whole life, he
Yeah.
was winning when he was a little kid, winning in high school, a QB, star QB, went into college, like no adversity at all.
Packed with the devil.
Yeah.
Would you? Yeah, right. Would you even like want to watch his movie or like learn
Exactly.
anything about like the dude's just been winning?
Exactly.
Like there is no like character development in it. But when
Exactly.
you look at the person that God can take who was struggling,
Yeah.
who had no identity and all of a sudden has this huge sense of identity and now is doing great things for the kingdom, for the world.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like that's a story that that's a book I would like to read.
Absolutely.
And I want to touch on this one because Moses is like really one of my favorite books in the Bible, right? Because it talks about how he had this stutter.
Yes.
And he was not good with words, and who knows how good he actually looked and such, right? But as a result of having that speech impediment and such, and God using him, he ended up having to go about developing the skill to be able to do exactly what he did not want to do. And that's what we end up encountering, in the everyday life. We end up having to do the things that we don't necessarily want to do. I don't want to wash my clothes, but I need clean clothes for the work we coming up, so let me go ahead and do it. But there's, more tangible skills and such, of course. But we have to do those things to go about being in the position that we want to be in. And if we don't go about doing those things and we're sitting still and then all you're doing is talking about, oh, I hate this place, I really want to leave, and such. And you're not doing anything to better your situation at that point. You're not taking advantage of your unfair advantages.
Right. And you're there for a reason, right? If you are in, say, in a workplace, you don't like your job, whatever. Like, what if, and I don't know for sure, but what if you're still there because someone needs your energy, your spirit, your light? You need to provide them a word or something.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right? Like, it's kind of like taking a test. Like, how can you pass the test if you haven't, how can you move on to the next test if you haven't passed this test?
Exactly.
Maybe there's something in this season in life right now that I have to pass, that I have to learn, that I have to take away that it's a tool that I need
that experience.
at the next level.
Exactly. Man,
I need to acquire this for
Give me
the
the
next
XP.
season of life.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah, I need to gain some XP.
And I guess that was the thing about this book, man, because it talks about the person that comes from, Palestine and grew up playing in the dirt, throwing rocks for fun and such, right? And then it talks about also the kid that grew up in a rich family and how people, might look down on them and say, you didn't have to, go through any kind of struggles because your family was able to provide you with everything. But just because you're provided with everything doesn't mean that necessarily you're going to be able to do everything either. I think that might be one of the greatest hindrances because you just expect to have everything handed to you at some point. But for the individuals that are able to look at that situation, I can really do some good with, the money that I have available to me.
Yeah.
That's how we end up encountering the people that, build Snapchat and, such. Because oftentimes you do hear about these people that end up making multi-billions and such, already having some kind of wealth behind them. But there was hard work that ends up having to go into that as well. So I think that we can't just discount, the struggles that any individual goes through.
Right.
And we have to be able to appreciate what it is that they actually go through.
Right. And I mean, really, they also had to spend time mastering that craft.
Exactly.
To produce whatever that was, you had to learn it, you had to manipulate it, and you had to mess with it, break it, fix it up.
Yeah.
There's a process to get to that end goal, which, like you said, Snapchat or Facebook or Instagram, whatever that social media or whatever that huge tool that everyone's using today, there needed refinement before that final product could be released to the world. Just like us.
Yeah.
We need refinement before we can fulfill our calling. Our character needs to be refined.
Yeah. Before we can fight those Goliaths.
Exactly.
We need to go through the fire.
We need to go tend some sheep. We need to go kill some bears with our bare hands. To take some lions out.
Yep.
And then maybe we might have to wait 10 years.
Yeah.
But we don't like that because we want it now.
Yeah.
That's right. We want instant gratification.
Man.
That's another-
Even if God said hey, I'm gonna give you everything you've asked for 10 years. You don't have to do anything else. Just wait 10 years. Dude, that is torment for people.
Yeah, man.
I believe it.
So just imagine the struggle that Abraham and Sarah were having.
There you go.
Yeah, man. Where you end up essentially telling your wife or husband, I'm not able to do it for you. Go ahead and, shack up with somebody else. Maybe they can do it.
Take my handmaiden.
Yeah, exactly. Just that struggle, because I think that when they finally had their first kid, they were in their 80s.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And you can kind of hear it where Sarah was like, after all these years, it's finally going to be given to me. And she kind of laughed about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
She mocked it.
Yeah, And then it actually happens. And it was like, oh, and then, how? God is going to, impregnate me at this old age?
He's like, I stretched before this time.
Exactly.
Don't change the rules at game time.
Yeah. Always
Wrong.
get a good stretch.
Wrong.
Yeah. No, but seriously, like that's exactly what they did. They changed the rules at game time.
Yeah.
God told them, "I promise you,
Yeah.
you Sarah, you Abraham,
Yeah.
a boy, and a great nation will come out of your descendants."
Yeah.
Right, like the sands, like the granules of sand. Right,
Yeah.
that's what Scripture says.
Absolutely.
And they said, I remember God promised you a son. I'm too old, so it's not gonna happen. Just do it with her.
Yeah.
So they tried to fulfill God's promise in their way. Don't change the rules at game time.
Let's see. Exactly.
I think that might be today's episode. Don't change rules at game time.
Yeah, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
All right.
So we've talked about David as a lover a little bit. We talked about David as a warrior. Do you want to talk a little bit on as a king and as a friend?
That will be our next. That'll be a little preview for our next episode in this series, which will be David as the king and a friend. And a friend kind of aligns a little bit more with what people were initially thinking of a lover would be, and really the friend is a relationship.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how do you be a king who needs to enforce, who needs to lead, but you can't forget about the relationships and the individuals.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's a dichotomy. Like, you need to lead, but you also got to be able. You have to be focused on the relationship and build that relationship. But sometimes when you lead, some feelings will get hurt. But again, that is what I'm really excited for next one, because once we cover, like today we covered the warrior and the lover, which you guys did a great job at. Next we'll cover the king and the friend. Then after that, it'll be around Christmas time. A couple episodes left. We'll have a special Christmas episode that we'll talk about. But even before that, we're going to have a specific, tangible, actionable episode. Because take these first couple ones as learning. Let it digest. You might have to listen to these a couple times, which I highly suggest you listen to a lot of them, because there's so many gold nuggets. People have told me multiple times they go back and actually listen to it in 15, 20-minute increments, because there's so many gold nuggets and they don't want to miss anything. And I'm like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So go back and listen, and then by the time we get to the episode, we're like the how-tos, because we're going to dissect it into 3 different parts: the head, the heart, and the hands. How does a warrior think? What is the warrior identity for your heart? And what does a warrior do with his hands? And as we break that down, we want to give the listeners a very clear blueprint of what to do next. Whatever season you find yourself in, whether you're searching, whether you've been on your walk for a little bit and you just need some kind of actionable guide, that's what we want to provide for all our listeners and viewers.
I think that might be the perfect time to bring on your buddy, man. For that episode, the actionable, what to do next.
Which one? Which buddy?
You've been talking about him for a couple weeks now. Saying that you wanted to get
Jesus?
on the podcast.
Jesus always here. Jesus always here.
Oh, yeah. Nah, man, you said there was somebody else that you wanted to get on.
Is it Sam?
Oh, Samuel?
I don't know. I don't know if that's what.
I don't know.
I don't know.
It's Samuel.
He's works with people, helps them out,
Maybe.
working
Maybe we can.
their demons out.
Well, I know, our other buddy David. He's another one that he's got a wealth of knowledge. It would be fun for him to be on here too.
Yeah, man.
So
You know what though? We got some really good takeaways that we can wrap up with. I think we covered some really great traits, right, that we find in this character David.
Yeah.
That is very relatable to people today.
Yeah.
That you can definitely act on. Be responsible. Step up to the plate. Don't shy away from responsibility.
Yeah.
Be humble, right? But know when to stand up for what's right. Right?
Absolutely.
So that's like the lover stepping into the warrior.
yes,
Right.
yes,
And so in order to be a warrior, you need to have values. You need to have strict lines that no one crosses. You don't go over it, and no one goes over it. to get to you. You know. So
Don't change the rules at game time.
don't change the rules of game time, right?
Don't change the rules at game time.
Yes.
Yeah. If you know what's right and you've been given specific instruction, don't try to go around it. You know, don't try and mess with the rules when you're on a goal. I think we said this early on is have a mission, right?
Yes.
So have a mission.
Yeah,
And if you don't know what your mission is, read the Bible.
absolutely.
There you go. Yeah.
Read the Bible.
Yeah, man.
I wasn't planning to share this until a little bit later, but I think this would be really helpful for people. I think, and I was telling you a little bit about this, like the purpose matrix, right? And I think your purpose comes down to three different things. Something that you're naturally gifted at. People are usually commenting, "Oh, you're really good at this," or "You're really you excel in that," and it doesn't even look like you're trying. Something you actually enjoy doing. Something you like are researching all the time. You're reading about. And a side note of enjoyment doesn't always mean positive. What are you willing to endure? Just like you going to school, but you hate doing the tests, that just proves how much you enjoy school because you're willing to push through the crappiness of the test. So the two parts real quick is something you're talented at, you're gifted at naturally, something you enjoy doing, and that last piece is something that has to do with other people. Because I believe that God didn't create us to be alone, and you said this too, your gifts aren't for you. Your gifts are meant for somebody else.
There you go.
So I feel like when you fill in those three gaps, those three pieces of the pyramid of something you're good at naturally, something you enjoy, something you're willing to put up with, and something that has to do with other people. When you're able to fill those in, I feel like you're one step closer to your purpose.
I think you should share that link that you were talking about earlier too, with the spiritual gifts.
Yeah, I will. Yeah,
Yeah, man.
yeah. So I'll actually, for everyone who subscribed to our newsletter, it's just the easiest way to kind of send this type of information out because it just gets pushed out every Monday morning at 5 a.m. Central Standard. So if you guys haven't had a chance yet, make sure you subscribe over on www.operationredwood.org. And once you go on there, just put in your email and you will be subscribed to the newsletter. You'll get all of our weekly updates on our episodes. You'll get the links to all that straight to your email, straight to your inbox. So you don't got to worry about fumbling around with iTunes or Spotify or Google Podcasts or wherever you choose to listen. That'll be all on there. And at the same time, we will do a little something extra special for you guys where we'll put on some of the show notes that we talk about.
And Speedos.
And Speedos, yeah, Brian did some Speedos. Make sure you subscribe because we're only gonna show that one time.
Paid content.
Paid content only. So that'll be a great way for us to stay connected with you guys. And at the same time, if there's any questions, any topics, any of you who were ever led to Christ or want to know God more, you know, we're obviously not pastors, but we would love to hear about your story and how the podcast has blessed you and maybe somebody else that you've shared it with. And who knows, maybe we'll get you on the show and just have an open conversation. And
You can share your story.
you can share. Yeah,
Good
I
for
mean,
the kingdom. It's good
it's-
for to have the good witness. You know what I mean?
it is.
You know.
It is. Because there's so many good things that are happening in people's lives. And it's almost like we will talk to ourselves, we'll talk down to ourselves really, really bad, but we won't really uplift ourselves. You know?
Yeah.
So that's something we want to change as well as like how we speak to ourselves in a more positive way. So if you guys got good stories, if this podcast has given you value, if it's blessed you in any way, shape, or form, you know, we would definitely appreciate a positive rating on Apple Podcasts. And we'd love to hear from you so we can continue to make this better. And then at the same time, we'll attach that assessment, that survey, so people can reach into their spiritual gifts and see what tool God is making you to be.
Yeah.
There you go.
Maybe we should open it up to where they can ask for, what we discuss next as well.
Yeah,
That'd be fun.
that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, we have the gear and tech now with all these the nice mics and everything. It's real nice. Oh, we can actually do some live streaming where it's like it's legit a radio show and people can pop in, ask us questions, and who knows? I mean, if you guys are local, or when we get to that point where we can fly people out and hang out with us at our eventual studio, it'll be dope.
Yeah.
It'll be real dope.
Beverages and food are on your own dollar. BYOB.
BYOB. BYOB. And actually, last thing, and I'm not trying to make this all like plug everything in there, but our apparel line is launched, and check it out. What we discussed a couple weeks ago is all the proceeds, all the profits that come in from this apparel line all the way till the end of the year. We're gonna discuss, and we're gonna donate them to organizations that are helping out with a lot of this war and this conflict that's going on. We still have Americans that are in Israel and in that area in the middle of war. We got some good organizations that are boots on the ground rescuing American citizens. So we want to do what we can to provide for them, to give them financial backup, give them more resources to take home some more Americans. And in the future, we want to be able to give back to organizations that are also helping locally. And this podcast is just the platform. And who knows where God takes this, but I pray that He continue to use us as He meant it to be. Because I believe that we're on to something huge, and this is still just the beginning.
His will be done.
His will be done. Ooh!
Whatever that may be.
Whatever that may be. And I mean it real this time.
Grab your knees. Grab your knees.
Grab your knees. So, as always, I appreciate you, gentlemen. Thank you for another awesome podcast. Like, this is, I can't imagine any better way spending Saturday mornings recording these with you guys, because like I always walk away with a new sense of hope and just energy.
Absolutely.
To carry me through the week until we get to running back.
Yeah.
I look forward to this.
Awesome.
Yeah, Saturday to Saturday, man.
It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, thank you guys for watching, listening, and we'll see you guys next week.
Next week.
Operation Redwood out.
Ooh, there we go.
Yeah.